What's up, guys? It's Dave and Duncan back from Metal Epidemic, and we are joined from outside the practice room for a few of the guys by Armed for Apocalypse. Guys, how are you doing?
Good, man. How you doing?
What's up, Dave? Good to see you. All is well.
Awesome. Yeah, it's been a minute since we last spoke. About 9 years almost since we caught up with you guys in Glasgow. You were on tour with 36 Crazy Fists. We saw you at King Tut's in Glasgow, which was awesome. You were I think it would be The Road Will End. I think the album you guys would be kind of promoting at that time. So what's been happening in the last 9 years? Just kidding. I don't need to.
Not much. We just kind of took a nap the whole time and chilled out.
Yeah.
Oh, did the guys in the van freeze? Where are they? Oh, I could
Are we
A little bit frozen, yeah.
I feel like they're getting a little glitchy on you.
Is it cold in this van?
Yeah,
it's really cold.
They're deliberately moving in slow motion just to unsettle us all.
We are a sludge band, so we move really slow. But
That's true.
Man, I will say the past 9 years, though, if that's an honest question, it's like trying to sum up your whole life in 30 seconds. It's impossible. I mean, literally entire lifetimes have happened, amongst the four of us, probably literally like entire lifetimes have happened in the past 9 years. So anything you can think of from life and career changes, music changes, kids for me, all sorts of, everything you can do in life. I think this group of people has probably been through over the past 9 years.
Yeah, for sure. There's guys have had a lot of changes. Obviously, I think that the last time I spoke to you guys in Glasgow, Nate's now kind of main vocalist in the band. You've got Charlie obviously on bass now as well. You had an EP out in 2018, but we are now about a month away or so from your brand new album, Ritual Violence. So you guys must be ecstatic to finally have this new release on the horizon. Is this an album that's been kind of in the works for a while?
It's been a long time coming, and I think we've had a lot of riffs for a while, and just kind of it's been a little bit of a slow process, but I think through all of it, we're really happy with what we put out. So.
And we also recorded it 2 years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Almost next month.
Oh, really?
Wow. Jesus.
Wow.
It's kind of amazing what you can do when nobody's paying attention, right? And waiting for the next release. Like, we had the record in the can for a long time, but as the world kind of, started to spin back up again, I think that was, though, I'll speak for the guys here. I think we, right in the middle of that phase, when we had all these riffs and we had songs, we didn't know what we were going to do, and we knew, we were going to go record with Kurt and everything. It switched from, what are we going to do? It's going to take so long for this record to see the light of day, to how do we take advantage of it being so long until this record sees the light of day, right? So we were able to refine songs, write more songs, put every collection of riffs and songs that we had together and literally just vote on them. Like, I give this one 3 points, this one 2 points. We went through this whole process, and I think that's why the record, we're so excited for the record, even though it's been a long time. I mean, it still feels fresh to me and relevant. It's not one of those things where we've been sitting on it and touring on it and all of that stuff. It still feels fresh.
Yeah. So obviously I mentioned you had your last EP was in 2018. When did the kind of writing process for this album begin? Was it right after the EP, or had stuff already been written before that?
Some of it was actually a collection from what we put out for that EP. We originally recorded basically a whole album's worth of songs, and I think we decided to just kind of take a few songs from it and put out an EP. And then, like Kale was saying, we took some of those songs and just kind of refined them and just kind of picked what we could out of some of those riffs, and then just made some new songs as well to join those. And So
I think we had 24 songs on the sheet, right? And it was like 24 songs.
I
We
think
whittled it
so,
down
yeah.
to like 16, and then we were working on 16, and then I think we sent all those demo ideas to Kurt, and then I think it was like 14, and we got there, and it was like, yeah, these are the songs we're gonna do right here. It was like that was it. Like it was 11, and I think that I don't know. I think there was like one more, like "Fuck the Glory Days" or whatever.
we were gonna do one more song, but I think just time. It was just like a time issue, and so we only had so many days in the studio, so we just decided to drop a song. Basically, like when we got there, we're like, let's just. We don't think we'll have time for this one, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think Kurt was a good kind of guiding light on that. He was basically like, look, I've done a lot of records and I don't think you're going to have time. So it's like, cool, and then I think we were left with, after all those 24 songs to the ones that we had, it was only the ones that we really couldn't live without. That were like, man, this would be a shame if this one wasn't on the record,
Yeah.
So I think that's why it feels like still fresh to us, because these are all songs that we're super excited about.
Yeah.
We didn't put any filler tracks on there in our minds, even though I don't know what you guys will think. Who knows? But we feel like they're all strong.
The other thing about it is, like, Kurt Ballou, like, we marginally obsessed
Kurt
at the
Ballou,
moment.
Kurt
Marginally
Ballou.
obsessed. Like, if you were on paper, if you were to sit there and say, right, Arm for Apocalypse, their sound, if you could pick one producer to work with them, who would it be? And it would have been Kurt Ballou. And I think from our perspective, it seems like such an obvious choice, but at the same time, like, from your position, like, coming in on that, with that guy's, like, repertoire now of bands that he's worked with, the way he manages to craft specific sounds to them, how daunting is that to go in? Or is that even something you think about? Is it a case of, like, we know this guy has done all these stellar albums, we don't need to worry about that? So how does that weigh into the decision to work with someone like that?
I would say it's probably each one of us would have a different answer to that. So, like, Charlie, how do you go down the line? Were you intimidated, or were you stoked, or both?
Both, I think. I mean, but intimidated was strong. I mean, I was really excited to work with someone that I listened to his records for 20 years. I fell in love with his own band when I was, like, in high school, Converge, and so. But there was in the back of my mind. I remember, I think I did yoga every morning with Nick, and I didn't have a drink for the first, like, 9 days we were there, just to be focused and, like, be as comfortable as possible in my own skin with him. But once you start working with him, I think he's realistic, but also, like, he wants to work with you.
Yeah.
And no, it was a hell of an experience.
What about you, Harris?
I remember being more stoked about you guys being stoked because, like, no, seriously, because at the end of the day, I really didn't, like, I had listened to Converge. Like, Kale and I were talking about this the other day. Like, when we first started this band, Kale gave me a Converge record, and I was like, okay. I remember listening and, like, trying to, like, because I didn't listen to that kind of heavy music back then, in like 2007. But anyway, long story short, I was more stoked that the guys were stoked about it, and I didn't really care what we did or who we did it with, but I just knew that they were stoked. So I was like, all right, cool, I can get behind this. And then when we got there, or before we got there, I had started listening to more Converge, and that's when I found You Fail Me, and I was like, this shit is, like, this is fucking awesome. Like, oh my gosh, this is so rad. And then going in there, and I remember saying, like, yeah, man, I'll just do whatever you tell me. He's like, well, I kind of like it to be more collaborative. And I was like, all right, cool. So then working with him on drums and stuff, never once did I feel intimidated, because he was so, like, ego out the window. Like, he was so cool. Like, that was really cool. Like, can you dig into this more or whatever? Or, like, I had these ideas, and he'd be like, that's, like, cool. Yeah, cool. But, like, maybe you could do it like this, whatever. And it was just done in a way where I never felt like an idiot. He just made me feel like his teammate. And okay, for example, we had all the click tracks all mapped out. We're like, we're ready to go. He's like, yeah, cool. I appreciate that, but play the song. And we're like, okay, we play the song, and he's like, yeah, so you're pushing and pulling here. I'm like, well, what do you mean? He's like, you want to play it faster here, so I'm like, how do you know that? He's like, he changed the click and it was easier to play. And then it was like, oh my gosh, this guy can like just, he knows exactly what's going on. You know what I mean? Like, he had it all figured out. Anyway, long story short, I was pumped.
Well, Nate, you had the most then. You had vocals and guitar, so
Yeah.
And I mean, honestly, I was so nervous the first day when we got into the studio with him. I mean, he's like one of my musical idols, and also just like producer wise an idol. And so I was like very quiet the first day. It's just like, oh yes, I know you. And then, but by the second day, it's like when he just made us feel a lot more comfortable. And yeah.
I mean, for me though, I was like you guys. I was like there. You know, we've been lucky to work with our friends. You know, like Eric Stenman and Chris Keene and Matt Petty and those guys. But I feel like we put them through a lot of like, we're handing them like a gajillion different sessions and trying to make it sound like a cohesive thing. And we were just asking a lot of them. And I think a long time ago, I was like, we should be recording with Kurt Ballou. This is like kind of the sounds that I have in my head. I feel like go right along with the production that I hear from him. And I think I saw Nate at like a Christmas party a long time ago. And I was like, I want to do the next record with Kurt Ballou. And he was like kind of new in the band. And he was like, fuck yeah, that would sound so nasty. And then, you know, like literally life just went in like such crazy directions that we ended up like piecing together that EP. And I think it, you know, the parts of it that people haven't heard sound are the parts that sound, I think, pieced together. So when it came to this one, when we decided that we were going to do it, I think like as a group, it was like, let's not compromise anymore. Let's not record until it can be with somebody like that. If it's not Kurt, it's got to be somebody like that, you know, that we're really excited about, that we can go in and knock everything out in one session. So it all sounds cohesive, like it sounds like a band, like how we feel like the band sounds live, except a little bit better. And so it was, I think, again, one of those things where we took it as the gift of time. Like we could wait until we could do it with somebody that we were really excited about. And I think that attitude sort of is the common through line of the whole record. Is we did the songs we wanted with the person that we wanted, you know, the artwork with the person that we wanted, the label that we, you know, all that has just been, I think, the consistent theme looking back on it now anyway.
And I also got like, I was like driving Conjure in the USA or in the US, and actually we were in Canada at this point, and like everyone had passed out and I was driving and Brady was sitting next to me and we were talking about like, what does Armed for Apocalypse do? Like, what do we do? And Brady's like, you gotta have a big time producer. It's gotta be like Kurt Ballou, or I can't remember. He like named a few different people, and I remember like getting to Kelowna, and I hit Nate up like, yo, dude, this is what Brady thinks. This is what I'm thinking about. And he's like, all right, okay, cool. And like we went around to each band member, and we're like, we gotta do it. Okay, cool. And then it was like, Kale's like, okay, I'll just reach out to him, because they had already talked, and they had already like switched gear or something. They had like some kind of friendship.
He
saw us playing in Boston.
Oh yeah, but dude, that was afterwards. We had like talked to. Then Kale reached out to him. He was into it, and then we were out with Mongol Horde, Frank Turner's like the hardcore band he has, and then. That night he came out to see them play because he had made Matt a guitar, so they were already homemade. So then he came to the show, and I remember like playing and like looking over. I'm like,
well, I remember it was like 30 seconds. You know, I had my glasses off. We're like huddled up, ready to go, doing like just a pregame ritual real quick. And Matt comes out and goes, "Hey guys, I want you to meet my friend Kurt." And I was like, you couldn't have waited until after the set. Now it's like, what's he was so nice. I mean, it was great. But it was just like, you couldn't have waited like the next 30 minutes.
He watched at least, I remember like clocking, because I wasn't all starstruck about it, but like, I remember clocking, like, I saw him, he watched at least 4 full songs, and then it was like, cool, like, I'll record you guys. And that was it. And it was about that intensive. He was like, yeah, cool, I'll do it.
Well, and that I think maybe set the record for the longest answer in history to a question.
I would much rather have a long answer than yep.
Long story short.
Yeah.
I suppose as well, like, because you touched on it, the genre of music that you guys are in just now really does benefit like big production, and it makes me wonder, like, because like kind of that sludgy sound for the longest time just seemed to be something that, you know, the kind of the idea was no, it has to have that garage vibe. You know, it has to, you know, like, it has to sound like everyone's in one sweaty room and no one can breathe and you can't move, and that's how you record something sludgy. And I think in the last like 7-8 years, that's went the other way, and you've got these producers now who like are like technically proficient that are working, and rather than the kind of feeling that was around was as soon as you do that you lose the sound. If anything, it amplifies it. So now I know Dave has listened to the entire album. I listened to 3 songs before. I don't like to listen to anything until we're about ready to record, because then I'd end up listening to other things and I'll lose my train of thought. And I listened to 3 and it sounds fucking monstrous, like absolutely ridiculously huge. To the point that I was actually struggling I was like, just listen to another track, but I have to record. Just listen to another one. So, like, in terms of that, like, having to sit on that for the amount of time that you have as well, at this stage now, it must be like, let's get the album out, let's get touring, let's, you know, hit the ground running. How difficult has it been, realistically, to have all that in the bag and ready to go and still have to be kind of like, well, you know, we can hold off another month.
It's been a struggle. I mean, but part of it is like hasn't been, you know, up to us. You know, we went through the pandemic and everything, so like shows weren't happening. So it was like, well, it was kind of a good time that we did record and had this time that nothing was happening at all. And I mean, you know, since shows have been happening again, it has been like, we want to get it out, and then like, you know, this weekend we're going to be playing a couple songs off the album for the first time, nice. You know, live. So we're really excited to do that as well. So.
And you've been in a position as well where you have an album recorded pre-pandemic as well, so your album won't be focused on that, whereas a lot of bands like spent that time like cram recording, and you can hear the amount of albums that like the press releases come and said, you know, influenced and inspired by the 2 years of trauma that was the pandemic. And there's a lot of that come out. I think it's had a particular shape on music, but like there are bands that had stuff recorded pre or have like kind of jumped in right afterwards and done stuff there as well. I think there'll be a refreshing sound to that as well. Like, you know, like that idea that it's not laser focused on like for what was for most people like the most miserable 2 years like ever. So I think that in a lot of ways benefits it.
Yes, I think the album can't help but have some of those things in it, like with Nate's lyrics and the vibe of the album. I think the finished product was definitely the pandemic kind of crept into it. I didn't want to write like a pandemic record. You know, that seemed like so too, I don't know, like of the day. You know, it's going to sound very dated in several years when that's all over. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where having to choose from all these songs and riffs that we had before, and then getting to supplement that with what was happening, you know, at the moment. I think that's what makes it just feel like a record for us. It doesn't feel like a pandemic record for me, and I'm speaking for the rest of the guys here. And then secondarily to your point about the recording, I completely agree about like it used to have the same death metal, like, you know, like all like black metal and death metal had to sound like shit or else it wasn't cool, right?
Yeah.
I think that sludge stuff went through that phase for a long time as well. If it wasn't recorded just like on 2 mics with like weird sounding drums, then it was like, you know, oh, it's too polished and everything. But now the level has raised to the point where you can't, like, that doesn't pass anymore. It just doesn't. Like it's gotten past that point where there's no excuse for having like a terrible recording. But you never wanted to have the super clean robotic sounding recording, you know, like everything crazy lined up and perfect. And I think that's why Kurt to us was the perfect guy, because his recordings still have air in them. They still have teeth, you know, like real sounds. And it sounds like a band playing music instead of like a digital representation of a band playing music. Yeah. But anyway, I just wanted to touch on that because I completely, and I've talked on that topic with my musician friends before, of like, music is recorded heavier now than it's ever been ever.
Oh, yeah.
So if you come out with like some GarageBand recording, it's just not going to cut it. And I felt like we were on that path, and that's why we had to be intentional about working with Kurt. And then we recorded it on our time, on our budget, with the person that we wanted. And yeah, all of the themes of the day kind of snuck in there, but it doesn't feel like I'm going to look back and say like, oh shit, that sounds like a pandemic record. All they're talking about is the pandemic and the feelings that went along with it. I don't feel like it's like that. Nate might feel differently because he did, all the lyrics and everything. So I think that's a personal experience for him.
Yeah,
I think we just use the pandemic as a time to just focus on the music, and not. You don't have to worry about tour because we're a band. We've never made any money on tour, so tour is like a drain on your resources. And we didn't have to worry about tour, and we could just worry about the record.
Yeah,
like that was kind of refreshing, I think, for the guys, especially because they played 1 million shows going into the pandemic, like 150 plus in 2019, and then it was just like shut off, and then it was like, well, you can actually work and make money and live your life, and you can just focus on this record. So I think it's one of those things now. I think when we were intentional about it, it seems like the stars kind of aligned to make a good record. But I do think it was a conscious decision by the group to make it to use it to an advantage. And that's why we have something that we're proud of. Whether people like it or not, that remains to be seen. I'm super flattered that you guys seem to like it, so thank you for that.
Well,
that's all Dave has talked about for the last. Honestly,
it's true.
And just segue in anything like, what do you want from the McDonald's drive-through? Well, that Arm from Apocalypse album's really good. I mean, thanks, Dave. It's not what I asked you, but I'll let him chat.
You guys are obviously, you're known for those kind of like the big, filthy kind of sludge grooves, but the album itself is actually very varied in tempo and style. There's a track called Lifeless on the album, which is just relentless to begin with, but eventually kind of drops into that like kind of sludge city by the end of the track. And then you've got like tracks like Live Through the Storm, which has almost this kind of like these kind of melodic kind of noise rock kind of tails on the end of some of the riffs, which felt a little bit different for you guys too. Or Foredoomed has one of the best southern groove riffs I've heard in a long time. Just ridiculous. It's one of those riffs that just make you smile instantly. You're just like, yes.
You're making us all smile right now. This is extremely flattering. Thank you. Jeez.
It's so good, man. The last track, I won't spoil it, but there's a bit of a kind of surprise on Eternally Broken as well, which is really cool. Do you feel like this is the kind of best like representation of Arm for Apocalypse so far?
I'm going to speak for me and Nick have been in the band the longest, so I guess we're probably the most qualified to answer that. And I would say it's probably not even close. I think like we really had to fight to get the best representation of what we thought we were at the time. And to no fault of anybody else, I mean, it was really just our circumstances and where we were at the time. We just couldn't quite get there. I don't really feel like our records really delivered on who we thought we were. And this one, like, I feel like Nate, the songs that he like Live Through the Storm is Nate beginning to end wrote every note of that song, and it sounds like us, and it's like a song I would love to hear. Like when he sent me the demo, I was like, fuck yeah, this is so, like I was so pumped. I couldn't believe this guy was in my band. I was like, these are riffs that I'm so stoked on, And I feel like everybody, though, in the group had those moments, you know what I mean, where they got to contribute the best of who we are as people. Yeah. And really play to our strengths in the group. And so, yeah, I would say it's not really close. And I also think we didn't really overthink the record. I didn't try to talk Nate out of any riffs or songs. It was, I think, if I submitted a song to the group just for them to check out, it was more like a thumbs up or thumbs down. That was it. Like we weren't like, hey, let's bash our heads against the wall and try to make a song out of it. It was like we either got us stoked or it didn't. Yeah. And I think we just ended up with a bunch of thumbs ups. Like, we feel really good about these things. All of it can get us excited, and just like hope we can execute in the studio and get it to where what we think it's going to sound like in our heads. And then at the end, I think it surpassed that for me. And so, yeah, I mean, Nick, maybe you have a different view, or guys, maybe you do, but I think for sure it's the best representation. And I think now that we know that that's possible, I actually get excited for what we could do in the future.
Yep.
Now that we know that we can get there, you know what I mean? Now it's like, well, shit, how far can we take that? You know?
Mm.
I actually think that, like, with Nate's writing, not that, like, you know, Kirk's wasn't as, like, good or whatever, you know, but I think that the way Nate sees things and the way he, like, projects them and gets them out is the part we were actually, like, missing as a band.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, now that he was, like, now that he's come in and been like, I got this, like, cool riff, you know, and he's all mellow about it, but it's like the most aggressive pissed off thing ever, you know, and it's like, dude, like, and it's like an element I don't think we were able to tap into. And again, like, not that Kirk or Corey couldn't write these things, it was just that the way Nate presents them, and we're like, oh, like, I don't know, like, there's, like, sludgy, like, heavy riffs that Nate wrote, like, and before you could be able to pick out, that's a Kale riff, this is a Kirk riff.
Mm-hmm.
Blah, 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 you know, and like now I feel like it's just an Arm for Apocalypse riff. Does that make any sense? Like, I don't know how to explain it, but like I feel like the merge of these two, and then the way that like Charlie and I complement the way they write, I just feel like it's a more cohesive, flowing type thing.
I think we're like blending our writing styles well, you know, without going too far off in one direction, you know.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like I've listened to the album a few times, but it sounds like it does sound like you've tried some new things. You know, some of them are quite subtle, but was it like a kind of conscious thing that you were trying these little elements, or was it just a kind of organic, kind of natural thing that happened with the writing of this album?
I think it's just, you know, we just try to write stuff that we like to listen to, like to play. And, you know, like Kale was saying, it's like, we send each other demos, and it's like, hey, do we like this? Do we not? You know? And it's like, there wasn't anything that I was like going for as far as like writing goes, writing the songs, like, oh, it's got to be like this, and this riff has to be like this. Like, it's just like, just want to write heavy music, and like if we all like it and agree on it, and it like meshes well together, then it's like, you know, thumbs up.
Yeah.
I mean, I just
write whatever comes to my head, regardless of even whether it's an Arm for Apocalypse song or not. I just try to write whatever comes to my head at that moment, and then some stuff I'll send to the guys, and if it strikes them, then cool, and if it doesn't, then I just move on. And I think that Nate's that same way too. Just whenever inspiration strikes, he just writes. Whatever happens, you know? And, but I feel like sometimes we have to pull that out of Nate. Like, don't hide that for yourself. That's sticking with us. You know what I mean? Like, that's too badass to live in your hard drive somewhere. But I feel like there's a lot of freedom in that. It's just kind of write whatever comes to your head. And like, if it inspires the guys, then let's just go and not really question it too much, you know?
It's a weird concept, because you think that on paper that's how it should be. Like, as a musician, like, whatever inspires you should be the thing that you go with. But I think bands get locked into, I think part of it's bands, part of it's labels, and part of it's fans, where they're like that, well, no, this is your sound, and that's what we want in every album, and you have to do that in every album, or, you know, you're going to upset us, and we're the ones that buy your albums and all the rest. Where it should really be about what makes the musicians happy, like the direction. You never feel like you're churning something out which is just what everyone else wants to hear. It should always be what you want to do ultimately, and like, people will gravitate to that for sure. I think you can chart those bands that hit those albums where it's not the sound they're necessarily known for, but what they're doing is pushing boundaries, it's changing the way things, and yeah, they'll maybe lose one or two fans, but then they bring in more people who then start to rally around it. I think that the thing once again, speaking as someone that's only heard 3 songs, but like the thing that's kind of stood out to me was not only how huge it sounded, but like there was just there's a supreme confidence in the songwriting, which just like flows right out right from the start. And from what you're saying, it certainly kind of backs that up. I suppose, like from my perspective, now that like for what most of your songwriting is now going to be like moving forward, where things are kind of off the table, is that a kind of methodology you'll use moving forward, the kind of the voting up, voting down system, or is that a case of you're just going to like once again just see what fits that time, that environment, and how your lives are?
I mean, I just look to bands that I admire, bands that have staying power, that maybe their fan base is kind of ebb and flow, but they're going to do what inspires them regardless, So I think of bands like the Deftones or something like that, right? Every album has some new, fresh twist, but it always sounds like them somehow, right? But they still are only doing what inspires them. Sometimes that's to the detriment of their career, but to the benefit of them as people and artists. And that's why they're still around and they're still relevant and still touring. And I can think of a few other bands like that. I think that's, as a group, those are the type of bands that we admire. I would feel way too much pressure if I was only writing stuff for other people to like. I just wouldn't feel, I don't even know if I would do it, to be honest with you, because I just get the most stoked when I send something to Nick and he writes me back a text with like 17 exclamation points, I'm like, that's it,
Yeah, I remember like when I did send Kale Live Through the Storm originally, I sent him the demo, and I was like questioning it, like, is this an A for A song? And I sent him the demo. I was like, hey, can you check this out? Like, do you think this is like too off for us? And I remember his text back just said, if this isn't an Arm for Apocalypse song, I don't want to be in this band.
Yeah, so I think moving forward, that's it. That's the reaction, that we're probably going to write for as long as we're making music together. Whether the label or, the people that listen to it, if we're fortunate enough to have a lot of people listen to it and they have expectations. I think when you just set the expectation that we're going to do what inspires us, I think it's more exciting to wonder what the band is going to do next than to know what you're getting every time. That's just for me. I admire those type of bands, and I've always aspired to be that type of band. And I just think we wouldn't be comfortable operating any other way in this group dynamic anyway.
They're the bands that, like, I think are the ones that have the biggest impact as well. Like the amount of times you'll get like a bit of a press, or you hear an interview from a musician in a band who loves this really obscure album by this, it's like Deftones is a great example of that, because like in the last 5 years, the amount of bands that have like huge Deftone influences is absolutely insane. And you would think it would all be White Pony stuff. You would be like, well, White Pony was the album that, like set them off into the stratosphere. And you listen to it, I hear like bits from like Saturday Night Wrist or like Diamond Eyes, and I'm like, that's like so like and it's the obscure stuff. But like I think that's the thing. I think you as long as you're doing what makes you happy and musically fulfilled, it is going to have an audience out there. It is going to inspire people, and those people will go on and do their own thing off it. In terms of like the album, Not That Far Away, how aggressive is the touring cycle for this one? Because you guys are known to tour pretty aggressively. So how's that kind of shaping up?
Honestly, that's been the slowest part of the whole thing, and I think that's partially the state of the music industry and everything like that. I also think it may be a symptom of like, let's see how people respond to this record first, and then and this is not us, it's more like the business side of it. Like, let's see how people respond to this record first before we start kind of placing heavy bets.
You have nothing to worry about, Kale.
Yeah, I mean, I think so far the feedback has been so strong that we're really confident that the guys, because I don't tour with the band. I haven't toured with the band for a while, for for a while now, and I just want the guys to work, play like 250 shows on this record. That's what I want. And then while I'm at home collecting riffs, like writing riffs. So like, that's my part. It's like when they come home, hopefully I've got like 10 new things for them to listen to. So it just kind of keeps everything moving. That's what I hope for. I hope it's the most intense touring cycle. I really, really do, for the guys, because they deserve it, because they put in a lot of work in that 2019 when nobody was watching, just to say like, we're ready to put in the work. And I have a lot of admiration for my, for the guys in the van that are listening to me talk about them like they're not here. But seriously, I don't think people understand that there was no ego. It's just like, we've got to earn our spot in the place of the heavy music world. And we're only going to do that by playing a lot of shows and taking this seriously and showing people that we are serious. So I'm hoping that this record kind of affords them the ability to maybe not sleep in some Walmart parking lots sometimes and do some more real tours, like more higher level tours, but do as many shows as they can possibly do. I think it's going to be the best touring cycle that the band has ever done, but that remains to be seen.
Well, it's kind of like we're just taking it as
selfishly, obviously, I've got to ask.
Yeah, like whatever comes down, and we'll take it. But
Scotland, guys, we need you back in Scotland. When's that going to happen?
can't wait.
Hopefully soon.
I wish we had a date on the calendar, right? But the UK is always a priority. I feel like always. Our Candlelight's based out of UK. We have a lot of friends there. I just feel like it's like a second home base to the band. The UK has always been very, very good to us, and I think it's we feel like we're doing well. If there are UK plans on the horizon, then we're like, okay, we're doing all right. But there's no date on the calendar yet. There will be. I mean, hopefully within the calendar, or within next year, there's a couple of Glasgow dates on there, but we'll see.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
I want the band to be on the festival circuit next. Those festivals always seem so rad, and like that's what I want. I want the festivals. That would be so fun to see. Yeah,
you're quite a fan of doing something like that, about a kind of bigger size. I know, like, there's some bands like Machine Head, they played Bloodstock over here just recently, but prior to that, they don't really do like festivals. They just don't do those type of shows. But is that something you guys would be completely open to?
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah,
we'll play whatever. We want to out there and play at this point. Like, we're sick of sitting around, I think,
Yeah, I suppose it's nice to have that luxury. Like Machine Head was just like, nah, I won't bother with festivals now. And that's pretty cool.
It's by choice. That's a whole different deal. And if I was Machine Head, I think they want to be in charge of their career and just say like, hey, we're gonna play to our crowds and do our thing. And I think that's really cool. I just want the band to get exposed to as many different types of heavy music fans as there are, because I think it kind of touches some notes in a lot of different genres. And that's why I think festivals would be really cool. But I mean, we are
prime for Hellfest, Dave. Prime for Hellfest.
Hellfest.
Like Hellfest is the most insane lineup ever. And if ever there was an audience preset for Arm for Apocalypse, it's the Hellfest crowd for sure.
That would be the dream. If you know anybody that can get the band on Hellfest, talk to them.
Lisa will do it. Lisa literally can make anything happen. She's like, honestly.
I'm typing her an email right now. Hellfest.
Like, I'm at the position now where I'm surprised when someone doesn't know Lisa. Like, so like, I'm like, you don't know Lisa? For sure. I think as well, I never saw you play at Tuts. I can't remember why. I'm going to say Dave didn't invite me.
I think you were out of the country, were you not?
That sounds good. Let's stick with that. I wasn't. And the thing is, as well, like, I think it says a lot, like, because, like, especially at that time, with bands like 36 Crazy Fist doing their kind of transitional thing in their sound on that tour, in terms of now with your sound being as it is, once again 3 songs, like there feels like you've there's so much opportunity there for different lineups that are not specifically Sludge related or Doom related, or like the sound feels like it could just slot in so nice with lots of different bands. Is there anyone like in the next year that you would really like if we could get out and tour with them? And even if it is fantasy booking here,
Ooh.
who would you like? Who would you like to go?
I bet we would all have a different answer. Like, I want to do the
That'll
same
make it
thing.
more
go down
fun
the
then.
line.
Let's go
I want to
with
go
it.
down the line and see what like everybody's answer is, because I'm fascinated by this question actually. Like Charlie, if you could be like, ooh, we play with that band, I think we would be a killer fit, and it would be a rad tour for us. Who would it be?
Do you hear that new Will Haven song?
I did. It's sick. I texted Jeff. I was like, dude, this is the heaviest song you've written in years. That thing is killer.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be rad. I don't know. I mean, fuck. I think I could have another answer in like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Fair. Fair.
But I mean, I would love to see the Conjurer dudes again too.
Yes.
That was the one of the last tours we did in 2019 was with them, and it was a blast. So yeah, let's just get out
The
there.
album is absolutely ridiculous as well.
Yeah. Their new record is so good. Okay, what about you, Harris? What's your answer to that one?
Honestly, did you guys see that thing that Sepultura did with like the orchestra? Like,
yeah.
Oh, for the Rock in Rio.
Yeah, not that I want to do that per se, but that's still like I love watching that band every night. You know, they just like bring it to the utmost professionalism and heaviness, and the drummers are always silly, tight, and good. You know, yeah, I'd say Sepultura. You know, I mean, Revocation has that new record coming out, or came out September 9th, and that's cool.
Yep.
I don't know. I kind of like whatever band we go out with. I'm gonna watch them every night and just be inspired. So, you know, I'm kind of stoked on whoever that's gonna be. You know. So.
All right, Nate. What do you got?
You know, this is a hard question for me. I think we work well with a lot of different styles of heavy bands. So I there's not one that really like comes in mind that like, oh, I think we would like go great with this and that would be a good crowd. I mean, I think we I think we tend to blend well with a lot of different heavy bands. So I'm gonna skip and go to
Oh man,
come on.
Didn't you guys want to go out with
well,
Converge?
of course I would want to go out with Converge. I mean, that's like a dream come true to me. I mean, but you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think my answer to that probably would be Converge, just because they're so legendary. You know, we never got to share a stage with them before, and I've always thought that like our style of like slower heavy metal does it lands really well when we're the different band on the show. You know what I mean? Like if you get kind of like some spastic bands or some blast beaty bands, and then we play and it's like very slow and deliberate in most parts, and there's still fast parts and all that stuff too. But I feel like it does, you know, I don't want to go out, and it kind of is boring to go out with a bunch of bands that you sound just like them and stuff.
Yeah.
I like different type of bills. So Converge would be really, really fun. I think that would be just such a fun one. And then, I don't know, I like that band that Will Putney's in, End. That's like,
Oh yeah.
I mean, they're not going to sell out arenas or whatever, but I just want to watch them play every night because they're so badass. So yeah, I think bands like that would be my ideal. I just want to tour with bands that I want to see all the time.
Yeah.
You know, honestly, like that's why we love playing with Crowbar all the time, because you get to watch Crowbar all the time.
Every night.
Sounds good
I
to
don't
me.
think it's one of those. Then like I've never missed this Crowbar set. I always watch it. 'Cause they're always gonna deliver.
Always.
Fucking death,
Always.
every night.
So
Yeah.
I hope that answered your questions, even though Nate was a coward on it.
Well, no, it did. I think it underlined the point there. You like, essentially picked 5 bands that don't sound alike at all.
Yeah.
All 5 of them sound completely different.
Yeah.
I think it does. I think I would go and see any of those. Even if you did decide to have a symphony orchestra on stage just for you guys, I would still go and see that. I think you guys could make that work.
I think we could figure
And
it
I also
out.
don't
That'd
think
be
any
fun.
sludge band has done that yet. So I'm not saying. I'm just
That's
saying.
that next level I was talking about
Yeah.
on the next record.
Yeah.
The orchestra, all sorts of shit.
Yeah. I think this year, if I was picking for this year, Just from albums that I've really enjoyed this year, I think you guys with Mountaineer.
Oh, I love Mountaineer.
If you've heard Mountaineer before, the kind of sludgy, kind of dreamy. What's it? They've got a particular genre classification. It's like sludgy dream pop. They kind of class themselves as. Hangman's Chair would be the other one. Those three, that would be ideal. Hangman's Chair are kind of shoegazy, kind of doom stuff, but that would be my pick for this year. Just on releases from this year, the three of you guys together would be perfect for me.
Cool.
What about you, Duncan? What do you think?
Mountaineer is 100%. See if you two group together, maybe you could get them over here as well. So they're out San Francisco, Washington, I think. Yeah. And they're just America's dirty little secret at the moment. They've got 2 albums back to back that are absolutely like jaw-droppingly good, and no one's talking about them. No one's talking about it. The first album's Bloodlet, and then the second album was the one that I really liked, and I've forgotten its name. It wasn't a million albums this year. So that, yeah, like for sure. I think Conjurer's you mentioned it, and now that just that playing in my head is just like, yes, I would spend a lot of money at that. So yeah. I think the thing is as well, we're just really excited to see you guys back out doing stuff, and really looking forward to seeing the success you're going to have. You are going to have with this album. I don't think there's any getting around with it. So it's very exciting.
Thank you so much, guys.
Yeah,
that's incredibly kind of you to say, and Train to say as well.
As long as you're not on the train tracks. Train tracks. That's all you need. All you need is train tracks, man.
I think that's where you guys took your band photo, right?
That's literally it.
Where they are.
I remember that train sound.
The quick passenger train instead of the long freight train that stops.
Sometimes they stop right here and you can't get out.
Oh god.
It's great.
Oh, what's that band that Conjure is going out with? That kind of sounded that Sugar Horse.
Oh, Sugar. See, did you hear the
I'm all about that band right now.
Oh, their new single literally gave me an erection. We'll jump on from that. Like, they're another band. Like, you listen to the chorus section, that Deftones as fuck.
Yeah.
So, those dreamy parts that they have are so cool. I love that band. They're awesome. Yeah. I'm jealous that Conjure's getting to play with them on their headliner. It's going to be
we should be going to that. They're playing in Glasgow in November, so hopefully we're going to catch them.
We'll tell them they need to tour with you guys. So,
please,
please,
we'll get that sorted.
It's killer. They're really good. They're cool. Brady actually from Conjure turned me on to them, and I think I kind of discounted it at first because the name of the song was like "Pictures of Dogs Having Sex" or whatever. And
yeah.
Oh my god! I was like, what is Brady sending me? And then I listened to it. I was like, all right, this is like my favorite song right now. This is the shit. Like,
super rad.
Awesome.
It's so good.
Yeah, it's so good.
There's another one that just come to mind. If you get a chance, you guys probably know them better than I do. There's an American band called Bummer that are just Bummer that are from, where are they from? Kansas, I think. And they're a 3-piece, and it's the nastiest, just fucking stank sending thing ever. And you guys would also work really well with them. So
sounds right.
And they seem like they've got a really good sense of humor. If you follow them on Twitter, they just complain about their bus breaking down all the time. They've got the most unlucky bus ever, just constantly breaks down. So
I think we can go toe to toe with Vans. In the past. Not as much now, but in the past, holy Moses.
We have the van in the shop.
Van's in the shop right now.
Literally
getting ready to go for tomorrow.
Yeah, van in the shop. I mean, but it's perpetual. Like the van, if the van isn't in the shop, it is absolutely past due and should be critically like in the shop. Always since the day we started this band, it's just like we've had a broken van all the time. A couple of tours where there wasn't van problems. That's about it. And it's like you feel like you have a twitch afterwards because there wasn't a van problem. Like what happened? What? We're missing something. It's always that way, right? I mean, I feel like sometimes we would take even weird cars on tour and they would break down. Like they would have problems. I don't know. Whatever. I'm not
saying you don't get this over here because no band has to travel more than 2 hours. Like that's the thing. Like you guys are like, just a small 6-hour drive to our next gig.
Oh,
my
6 hours would
eyes
be great.
literally watered when you said it as well. I was like, oh no, 6 hours. One driver? Whoa, what are we doing here? That's not happening.
6 hours over there, you could go through 2 countries. You know
That's
what
all
I
I
mean?
said, that you can drive the length of Scotland in about 4. So
Very fortunate. Very, very fortunate over there. Not like that here. I think the guys and I right now, we're probably, a 10-hour drive apart.
really,
Right?
It's like it's 8.
Yeah.
8.5, yeah. So and we've done it. I mean, I've done it in my life probably 20 times. I don't know. Tons of times. It's not fun. But also, thanks for the kind word on the success of the record. Like, I know, I just don't want to let that pass. Like, it's super, super flattering to us when anybody likes what we do. And so, like, when you say those type of things, I don't want to just take it for granted and be like, oh, of course. Like, it really is super, super flattering to us, and to the point where we don't really know how to respond to it appropriately.
So it's all true, man. I mean, I've been following you guys for such a long time. I could easily just throw compliments at you, but I genuinely mean it. I think the new album is absolutely fantastic. I think it's your best record so far, and I can't wait to hear where you go next from this new album. It's just, the possibilities are endless, really.
Dude, that means the world to us. So, I mean, you just listening to us for a long time, because there's been so many little weird periods of kind of silence and inactivity, and the fact that you and other people like you still pay attention. Like, I wish I could buy everybody a pint who listens to our record and just be like, thank you, thank you, seriously. Because there's so much competition for your time and your ears and attention and all of that stuff. So when somebody spends a couple minutes with our songs, I'm just like, what can I do for you? Can I, how do I say thank you? So thank you to you and to anybody else who takes the time to listen to even half a song. We really, really appreciate it. It's very cool.
Yeah. Well, good luck on the next kind of run of live shows, and we hopefully see you over here at some point. Good luck with the album. Ritual Violence is out on the 7th of October on Candlelight Records. Links below to the band, to the Bandcamp, all that sort of stuff, pre-orders, all that. I'll put all the links below so you can check them out. And guys, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure here too.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Pleasure is definitely ours. Yeah, thank you for having us. We really appreciate it.
Thanks.